talking about the chapter-by-chapter notes of Over the Garden Wall. We are dealing with Chapter 1 today, and only Chapter 1. We will have other videos set up for the other chapters, but we're just going to do one chapter per video so it's quick and easy to read or listen to and take notes if you missed some notes or you missed the day or whatever. I still recommend if you missed the video in class that you would go ahead and watch it on your own and then take care of the notes. Remember, notes are really important because they are a grade of their own. They were part of the daily participation grade as well as a grade of the overall group of notes. And then also it's going to be important for our final projects, whether that's essay or a test, however that looks for your class period. So Over the Garden Wall, we're going to run through these real quick. Hopefully I don't miss anything. You might want to compare notes with your classmates to see if there's something you have that they don't or they have that you don't. And you should have a picture or a copy of the paper that has the pictures on it, the little graphic organizer kind of thing, just to kind of keep your eyes open and thinking of the different terms. Now, one that I failed to put on there that I forgot to put on this list of definitions that's with those papers I handed you is foreshadowing. And that's going to be really important. So you want to write that on the bottom there. Foreshadowing is Foreshadowing. So for is FORE and then shadowing, like you'd probably expect to spell that. So here we go, Chapter 1. Here's some of the highlights of what's going on. We find that the youngsters are coming up out of the creek or a river, out of the water at this mill at night. So the first thing that we want to talk about in each episode is going to be the setting. Remember, setting is time and place and circumstance. So what we look at is big picture and small stuff like we talked about on the other video with literary terms. We want to make sure that we have the setting as best as we can for what's going on, what information is presented, as specific, and include a broad sense of setting as well. It could be the circumstances. Sometimes when you read a book, it might be set during the Revolutionary War. You know, that's kind of the indicator of what's happening around you at the time. But anyway, we find these youngsters coming up out of the water next to an old, what they thought maybe an abandoned mill. It's a creepy mill next to the water there. And so we have a setting which is nighttime. It appears to be in the fall because of the falling leaves and the bare limbs and things like that are good indicators. The fact that they have long sleeves on, they're not bundled for the winter, but they're also not wearing summer clothes. So we have the idea that it's set at night, in the woods, in the fall. We at least have that much information so far. Now that's going to contribute to the mood. Now, since we have an audio-visual presentation in Over the Garden Wall, we have things like the music, and we have camera angles, the dim lighting for the pictures, the dull color palette that they use, like the browns and oranges that are of a dull sense, and they even use a filter over it at times to make it even look darker or granulated. So with all that, we set a mood which is kind of eerie, because what story that begins in the woods, in the fall, at night, next to a creepy old building, what story like that isn't scary or creepy or eerie, right? And it's very mysterious because they're not even sure how they got there, or at least they hear them speak. And so there's a lot of mystery by the setting, by the mood, and by the circumstances we find these young people in. By their clothes and by the facility, we do have some suspicion about the general era. We would maybe assume that it was set in the mid to late 1800s. The reason we would say that is because the kind of clothes they're wearing when they meet the woodsman. When they meet the woodsman, he's wearing a top hat. He's using an axe, not a chainsaw, carrying a lantern. They use candles. The mill is their machinery. So it's not from like the 1500s, but it certainly isn't modern era technology. So by technology, clothes, we kind of get the sense that it's possibly mid to late 1800s. Wirt, the big brother, is wearing this cloak that is reminiscent of a Civil War era kind of cloak with the Union blue and the brass buttons and stuff. It kind of seems to be of that time period. We'll explore that more later on. So we talked setting the mood. Let's talk real quick about main characters. We have main characters, which are Wirt, the older brother. So we describe them, we tell a little bit about them, give relationship. So he's an older brother. He's a teenager, young teenager, kind of tall and lanky, you might say. Seems very worrisome and fearful and nervous. So those are all good descriptions of the older brother Wirt. Now Greg is the little brother. He's obviously quite a bit younger, more immature, more adventurous for sure. I mean, when the monster comes up and is snapping at him, he's like, wow, he thinks it's a wonderful adventure as opposed to I'm about to be bit in half by this monster. So we have an idea of their age, their physical attributes, their relational attributes, and we'll find out more about their character as we go on in time. Some of the things we want to look at, first off, is one word called juxtaposition. Juxtaposition is when you put two unrelated things side by side, or two uncommon things side by side, to highlight attributes of the other. In other words, we have these brothers who are pretty much polar opposites between the worrisome one and the adventurous one, and the thoughtful one and the carefree one. And if we looked at Wirt, we would say, oh, he worries, and oh, he thinks. But when we put Greg next to him, who is not very thoughtful and who is very free-spirited, suddenly we see just how much of a worrier Wirt is. And so it highlights him. So that's the purpose of a device like juxtaposition in this first chapter. We have some plot twists in this chapter here. It begins to look like at the very beginning they encounter the woodsman. And, Greg makes the comment, Wirt makes the comment, which is a touch of foreshadowing. He makes the comment, oh, I wonder if there's a crazy old man with an axe chopping people up in the woods. And sure enough, they come up on a man with an axe. Scary stuff in the middle of the night in a setting. So we're kind of creeped out by the old man. He says a lot of cryptic things, which sound like, crazy man, I don't want to be here. The old man actually ends up kind of trying to help him before he becomes unconscious, which is a story of its own. But and then when he wakes up, he's offering advice as well. So he seems to be okay, but the plot twist goes, he's scary, maybe he's not so scary, maybe he is scary, he's not so scary. So what we're dealing with in him changes dramatically. Now, he warns them about the beast. One of the first things I have to shoot, which is foreshadowing, is they talk about the beast, and they even end the chapter with the beast. But as they're talking about the beast and this monster shows up, man, it sounds like this dude is, this wolf monster is going to be the beast. And when they overcome it, the woodsman says that wasn't the beast at all. And so there's a plot twist there that we thought we'd already met the beast because it seems like a beast, but it wasn't a beast at all. It was a misunderstood dog, right? And so there's that touch. There's some foreshadowing because, like I said, they mentioned the beast. That's going to be an important part. They're setting out on a journey to find their way home. So we already kind of know the circumstance of what's going on there. So with that, we're going to stop on chapter 1 for the time being, just so that you see that there was foreshadowing. Now, one other touch of foreshadowing or something to consider. Now, I want you to leave a question mark in your head. Why, if they were in the late 1800s, there would be plastic wrapped candy filling Greg's pockets? When there's an out-of-place detail like that, but it's important to the story in some way, or it shows up important later on, the author wants you thinking about that. He wants you to be considering, why is that information there? That's important. So later when it's revealed, you, almost like a detective, could be like, aha, I figured it out. So there you go, chapter 1. There's some good information for different parts of the literary element.